My coworker stole credit for my project. She didn't know I was recording. I watched Jessica's perfectly manicured fingers gesture confidently at my PowerPoint slides as she addressed the executive team, and I had to grip my coffee cup to keep my hands from shaking with rage. The key insight behind this retention strategy, she was saying, her voice smooth as silk, came to me during my analysis of our Q3 churn data. I noticed a pattern in customer behavior that our current approach was completely missing. Your analysis? I wanted to scream. I'd spent 3 months of 16-hour days buried in spreadsheets, creating predictive models, and conducting client interviews to develop this strategy. The pattern she was describing so eloquently? I discovered it at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday in September, surviving on nothing but Red Bull and determination. Sarah provided some helpful research assistance, Jessica continued, throwing me a condescending smile across the conference room. But the strategic framework and implementation plan are entirely my design. Research assistance. Research assistance. I'd literally created every single slide she was presenting. The executive team, including VP of Marketing David Chen and our CEO Amanda Rodriguez, nodded approvingly as Jessica explained how her strategy could potentially increase client retention by 23% and generate an additional $2.8 million in annual revenue. Those weren't random numbers. I'd calculated them myself using regression analysis and 3 different forecasting models. I'd validated them through interviews with 47 at-risk clients. I'd stress-tested the projections with our finance team and gotten sign-off from customer success. But here was Jessica, in her pristine navy blazer and calculated confidence, claiming ownership of my entire life's work for the past quarter. The promotion I'd been working toward for 18 months, the senior marketing strategist position that would finally get me out of analyst purgatory, was slipping away with every word that came out of her lying mouth. The implementation timeline I've outlined is aggressive but achievable, she continued, clicking to slide 12, the Gantt chart I built pixel by pixel in Excel. We could launch the pilot program by January 15th if we get approval today. David leaned forward, clearly impressed. This is exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need on the senior team. The depth of customer psychology research here is remarkable. Customer psychology. I'd taken a course at Northwestern last summer specifically to understand the behavioral drivers behind customer churn. Jessica's idea of psychology was manipulating people at office happy hours. Amanda nodded enthusiastically. I'm particularly impressed by the segmentation model. How did you develop the risk scoring algorithm? I held my breath. There was no way Jessica could explain the algorithm I'd built from scratch, incorporating machine learning techniques I taught myself through online courses. Well, Jessica began, and I caught the slightest hesitation in her voice. The algorithm uses a combination of engagement metrics, support ticket sentiment analysis, and purchase pattern recognition to assign risk scores from 1 to 10. She was literally reading from my executive summary. Word for word. But then she smiled again, that same confident smile that had convinced me to trust her 6 weeks ago when she'd offered to help me refine my presentation. When she'd suggested we practice together and collaborate on the final version. What Jessica didn't know, what nobody in that room knew, was that my phone had been recording every single one of our planning sessions. Including the one where she'd promised to make sure I got full credit as co-creator and the one where she'd said, "Don't worry, Sarah, we're a team." I smiled back at her, my hand moving slowly toward my phone. Game on, Jessica. The meeting was wrapping up, and I watched in horror as Amanda Rodriguez leaned back in her chair with that look, the one that meant a decision had already been made. Jessica, this is outstanding work. Truly exceptional. Amanda's voice carried the kind of approval that launched careers. I'd like to fast-track you for the senior marketing strategist position we discussed. Can you have a detailed implementation proposal on my desk by Friday? My stomach dropped through the floor. Friday. In 3 days, Jessica would be walking into the role I'd been gunning for since I started at TechFlow 18 months ago. The role that came with a $15,000 salary bump and finally, the respect I'd earned. Absolutely, Jessica replied, her smile so bright it could power the office building. I actually already have most of the groundwork completed. I'll just need to refine a few details. Of course she would. Because all the groundwork was sitting in my personal drive, organized in folders I meticulously labeled over 3 months of sleepless nights. The client interview transcripts, the behavioral analysis spreadsheets, the A/B test results from our pilot program with Meridian Industries, everything she'd need was work I'd already done. David Chen closed his laptop with a satisfied snap. I'm particularly excited about the predictive model. Our current retention approach is so reactive. This could revolutionize how we handle at-risk accounts. That's exactly what I was thinking when I developed it, Jessica said smoothly. When SHE developed it? I'd literally shown her my Python code 2 weeks ago, explaining line by line how I built the machine learning model that could predict customer churn with 87% accuracy. She'd stared at the screen like I was speaking ancient Greek and asked if we could maybe just focus on the PowerPoint slides instead. As the executives filed out, chatting about quarterly projections and market positioning, Jessica started packing up her things with the casual confidence of someone who'd just stolen a promotion in broad daylight. Great job today, Sarah, she said, not even bothering to look at me as she slid my presentation notes into her leather portfolio. Your research really helped bring my vision to life. My vision. I wanted to grab those notes back, to scream the truth right there in the conference room, but Amanda and David were still within earshot, discussing budget allocations for the new initiative. The initiative that Jessica would now be leading. Thanks, I managed, my voice barely steady. Happy to help. But as Jessica headed toward the door, I noticed something that made my pulse quicken. She'd left her phone on the table, the same iPhone 13 she'd been frantically texting on during our last planning session. The one she placed face down next to my laptop while I walked her through every element of my strategy, explaining my methodology, my research, my months of work. Oh, Jessica, I called out, grabbing her phone. You forgot this. She turned back, momentarily flustered. Thanks, I'm so scattered after big presentations. As I handed it over, our eyes met for just a second, and I saw something flicker there, maybe guilt, maybe calculation. But then the moment passed, and she was walking away again, probably already planning how she'd spend her promotion bonus. What Jessica didn't realize was that I'd just confirmed something crucial. Her phone had been recording too during our planning sessions. I'd seen the voice memo app running. Which meant there might be evidence on her device as well. I pulled out my own phone and checked my recordings folder. 6 meetings. 12 hours of audio. Every lie, every promise, every moment of collaboration she was now denying. Time to make some calls. I spent the rest of that afternoon pretending to work on quarterly reports while actually planning my counterattack. My hands were still trembling with rage, but now it was focused rage, the kind that gets things done. First, I needed to secure my evidence. I uploaded all 6 recording files to 3 different cloud services, then emailed copies to my personal Gmail account with timestamps. If Jessica somehow found out about the recordings, I wasn't taking any chances with technical difficulties making them disappear. But as I was organizing the files, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. The recording from our October 23rd planning session, the one where Jessica had explicitly promised to present us as co-creators, was corrupted. The file showed 47 minutes of audio, but when I played it back, there was nothing but static after the 12-minute mark. Right before the part where we discussed credit and recognition. My heart hammered against my ribs. That was the most damning piece of evidence I had. Without it, the other recordings were still valuable, but they mostly showed Jessica asking questions about my methodology and me explaining the strategy. A good lawyer could spin that as collaboration or mentorship. I tried every audio recovery tool I could find online. Audacity, Adobe Audition, even some sketchy freeware programs. Nothing worked. The data was simply gone. Think, Sarah. Think. I pulled up Jessica's LinkedIn profile and started scrolling through her connections, looking for patterns. What I found made my stomach twist into knots. She was connected to Marcus Webb from HR. They'd apparently worked together at her previous company, Innovate Solutions. She'd liked his posts about navigating workplace challenges and building strategic alliances. This wasn't random opportunism. Jessica had been planning this. But then I noticed something else. Jessica had posted about our collaborative project 3 days ago, before the presentation. The post read, excited to share some innovative customer retention strategies with the team. Sometimes the best insights come from diving deep into data and really listening to your customers. #innovation, #teamwork, #customer experience. Teamwork. She'd literally used the word teamwork in her post, then turned around and claimed sole ownership in front of the executives. I screenshotted the post immediately, along with the timestamp showing it was published at 11:47 p.m. on Sunday night. My phone buzzed with a text from my cubicle neighbor, Ryan. Holy shit, did you see the company Slack? Jessica just posted in #general about her promotion track. I opened Slack with growing dread. There it was, posted just 20 minutes after our meeting ended. Thrilled to announce that I'll be moving forward as the lead strategist on our new customer retention initiative. Big thanks to everyone who supported my vision. Can't wait to implement these innovative solutions I've been developing. Onward and upward. Rocket. 43 reactions already. Congratulations pouring in from across the company. Including several from senior management who'd been in that conference room, watching her steal my work in real time. But what really made my hands clench into fists was the comment thread. Amanda Rodriguez herself had responded, Jessica's strategic thinking on this project has been truly impressive. This is exactly the kind of innovation that will drive our Q4 growth targets. Strategic thinking. My strategic thinking. I was about to close Slack when another notification popped up. A direct message from Jessica herself. Hey Sarah. Thanks again for all your help with the research phase. I know you put a lot of hours into gathering that initial data. Don't worry, I'll make sure to mention your contributions when I present the full implementation plan to the board next month. Team effort. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Team effort. After she just spent an hour taking sole credit for everything I'd created. I stared at that message for a full minute, feeling something crystallize inside me. Jessica wasn't just a thief, she was a calculating, methodical manipulator who thought she could manage my reaction with patronizing messages and empty promises. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I started typing my response, then deleted it. Then typed again, and deleted again. Whatever I said next would become evidence, one way or another. Finally, I settled on, of course. Happy to support the project's success. Let her think I was rolling over. Let her get comfortable. Because tomorrow morning, I had a meeting with legal. The legal department at TechFlow consisted of exactly one person, Janet Morrison, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who'd seen every workplace drama imaginable during her 15 years in corporate law. I'd scheduled a consultation about intellectual property policies for 8 a.m. sharp, knowing Jessica never arrived before 9:30. So, Janet said, settling behind her desk with a steaming cup of coffee, what kind of intellectual property situation are we dealing with? I'd rehearsed this conversation in my head all night, but sitting across from Janet's no-nonsense stare, my carefully planned words crumbled. Someone stole my work. Completely. And now they're getting promoted for it. Janet's eyebrows lifted slightly. That's a serious accusation, Sarah. I assume you have documentation? I have recordings. I pulled out my phone, my hand steadier than I'd expected. 6 planning sessions where we discussed the project, including explicit conversations about shared credit. Recordings. Janet leaned back, and I caught something cautious in her expression. Were all parties aware they were being recorded? My stomach dropped. No. But this is a one-party consent state, right? I looked it up. It is. But company policy is different from legal requirements. Janet opened her laptop and pulled up what looked like the employee handbook. TechFlow policy requires disclosure for any workplace recordings. Violation could result in disciplinary action, including termination. The room seemed to tilt sideways. Even if they prove someone committed fraud? The recordings might not be admissible in any formal proceeding, and you could face consequences for creating them. Janet's voice wasn't unkind, but it was matter of fact. However, that doesn't mean we can't explore other options. Tell me exactly what happened. I walked her through everything, the 3 months of development work, Jessica's offer to collaborate, the presentation where she claimed sole ownership, the promotion announcement. Janet took notes in neat handwriting, occasionally asking for specific dates and details. You mentioned explicit conversations about shared credit, Janet said. What exactly did Jessica say? This was where the corrupted file would have been crucial. She promised to present us as co-creators. Said we were a team. But I can't prove that specific conversation. The audio file got corrupted. Janet's pen stopped moving. Convenient timing for a technical failure. You think she somehow? I think people are capable of surprising things when their careers are at stake. Janet closed her notebook. But without that evidence, this becomes a he said she said situation. Jessica could claim she was always the primary strategist and you were providing research support. My heart hammered against my ribs. So there's nothing I can do? I didn't say that. Janet stood and walked to her window, looking out at the parking garage. There are other angles to consider. For instance, if Jessica is claiming work that was completed outside normal business hours, using personal resources, or involving proprietary methods you developed independently. I took that Northwestern course on my own time and money. The machine learning model uses techniques from an online certification program I paid for myself. And most of the development work happened at home on weekends. Janet turned back to me, something sharper in her expression now. That's interesting. Very interesting. If you can document that the core intellectual property was developed using your personal time and resources, we might have grounds for a different kind of conversation. She returned to her desk and pulled out a fresh legal pad. I need you to create a detailed timeline. Every hour you worked on this project, where you worked, what resources you used. Bank statements showing course payments, browser history showing research, anything that proves independent development. How long do I have? Jessica's implementation proposal is due Friday, which means she'll likely be presenting to the board early next week. If we're going to act, it needs to be before then. Janet checked her calendar. Can you have the timeline to me by Wednesday morning? Absolutely. As I reached for the door handle, Janet cleared her throat. Sarah? One more thing. Don't delete those recordings yet. Company policy violations are often overlooked when they uncover larger ethical breaches. But that's strictly off the record. I walked back to my desk feeling something I hadn't felt since yesterday's presentation, hope. But when I opened my laptop, there was an email waiting from Marcus Webb in HR, sent just 20 minutes ago. Sarah, please schedule a meeting with me this week to discuss your role transition and future project assignments. Best regards, Marcus. Role transition. Jessica hadn't just stolen my work, she was having me reassigned. The meeting with Marcus Webb was scheduled for Thursday at 2 p.m., which gave me exactly 3 days to build my case. But as I sat at my desk trying to focus on Janet's timeline assignment, I kept getting distracted by the sound of Jessica's laughter drifting from the break room. She was holding court with a marketing team, probably spinning stories about her innovative breakthrough and strategic vision. I caught fragments of conversation, something about transformative customer insights and predictive analytics. My predictive analytics. By Wednesday morning, I had Janet's timeline completed, 47 pages of documentation proving that 73% of my work on the retention strategy had been done outside office hours, using personally funded resources. Bank statements showing my $1,200 Northwestern course payment. Screenshots of my weekend Slack activity timestamps. Even photos of my home office setup where I built the machine learning model at 3 a.m. on countless Saturday nights. But when I arrived at Janet's office, she looked grim. We have a problem, she said, closing her door behind me. I did some digging into Jessica's background yesterday. Remember how I mentioned people are capable of surprising things? My stomach clenched. What did you find? Jessica's previous company, Innovate Solutions, settled a lawsuit 18 months ago. Wrongful termination case filed by a data scientist named Kevin Park. The details were sealed, but I have contacts. Janet pulled up an encrypted message on her phone. Park claimed Jessica had stolen credit for a customer segmentation algorithm he developed. Sound familiar? The blood drained from my face. She's done this before. Gets better. Guess who was the HR manager who handled Kevin Park's initial complaint and recommended no action? Janet's expression was stone cold. Marcus Webb. Who now works here and just scheduled a meeting with you. I sank into the chair across from Janet's desk. They planned this. From the beginning. It looks that way. Jessica gets hired here with a glowing reference for Marcus. 6 months later, Marcus follows her over to TechFlow. Now you're developing exactly the kind of high-visibility project that could launch someone into senior management. Janet leaned forward. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Ryan, emergency. Jessica is in David Chen's office right now with a stack of papers. Looks serious. I have to go, I said, grabbing my timeline documentation. Something's happening. I practically ran back to my desk, trying to look casual while craning my neck toward the executive offices. Through David's glass walls, I could see Jessica gesturing animatedly while David examined whatever documents she'd brought. Her body language was different than usual, more aggressive, more urgent. Then I saw David pick up his phone and dial an extension. 30 seconds later, Amanda Rodriguez was walking toward his office with a concerned expression. My hands were shaking as I opened my laptop and checked my cloud storage. All 6 audio files were still there, but something else caught my attention, the metadata on the corrupted October 23rd recording. The file had been accessed externally on October 24th at 11:43 p.m. The same day Jessica had forgotten her phone in the conference room. She hadn't just corrupted my file. She'd hacked into my cloud storage. Another text from Ryan, they're looking at your desk. All 3 of them. I looked up to see David, Amanda, and Jessica staring directly at me through the glass. Jessica's expression wasn't triumphant anymore. It was calculating. Predatory. David picked up his desk phone again, and this time I knew exactly who he was calling before my extension rang. Sarah, could you come to my office please? And bring your laptop. My hands fumbled for my phone, fingers flying over the keyboard as I sent Janet an urgent message. They know about the recordings. Need help now. Then I grabbed my laptop, took a deep breath, and walked toward what felt like either my vindication or my termination. As I approached David's office, Jessica met my eyes through the glass and smiled that same confident smile from yesterday's presentation. But this time I smiled back. Because what Jessica still didn't know was that I'd spent last night creating one final backup she'd never find. The walk to David's office felt like a death march, but I forced myself to maintain steady breathing. Whatever Jessica had told them, whatever documents she'd fabricated, I had one advantage she didn't know about. Last night, after discovering she'd hacked my cloud storage, I'd done something that would have made my cybersecurity professor proud. I'd created a blockchain-verified backup of all my files through a decentralized platform called Proofkeep, timestamped, immutable, and completely inaccessible to external tampering. Every email, every draft, every iteration of my work was now cryptographically sealed with dates proving development ownership. "Sarah, please sit," David said as I entered his office. His tone was carefully neutral, but I caught the tension in Amanda's posture and the way Jessica sat slightly forward in her chair, like she was ready to pounce. "We've received some concerning information about your recent project work," Amanda began, her executive voice in full effect. "Jessica has brought to our attention some irregularities in your research methods." My pulse spiked. "Irregularities?" Jessica leaned forward, her expression a perfect mask of professional concern. "Sarah, I know you've been under a lot of pressure lately, but I had to speak up about the fabricated client interview data." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Fabricated?" "I've been reviewing the interview transcripts you provided," Jessica continued, sliding a folder toward David. "Several of the clients you claim to interview don't actually exist in our CRM system. Marcus Webb confirmed it yesterday when I asked him to cross-reference your contact list." My mind raced. Every single interview had been legitimate. I'd spent weeks scheduling calls with at-risk customers from our retention database. But if Marcus Webb had access to our CRM system and was collaborating with Jessica— "I have recordings of every interview," I said quickly. "Complete audio files with—" "Which brings us to another issue," David interrupted. "We're aware you've been making unauthorized recordings. That's a serious policy violation, Sarah." The room felt like it was closing in on me. Jessica's plan was brilliant in its simplicity: discredit my research methods, make the recordings inadmissible due to policy violations, and paint me as desperate enough to fabricate data. Even if I proved the interviews were real, I'd still face termination for the recordings. "However," Amanda said, and something in her tone made me look up sharply, "before we proceed, I want you to know that Janet Morrison has requested this meeting be postponed until legal can review some additional documentation." Jessica's confident expression flickered for just a moment. "Additional documentation?" "Apparently there are intellectual property considerations that need to be addressed first," David said, checking his phone. "Janet should be here any minute to explain." Right on cue, Janet appeared in the doorway with her laptop and a thick folder. "Sorry to interrupt, but we have a developing situation that requires immediate attention." She set her laptop on David's desk and opened what looked like a legal database. "I've been investigating the background of our recent hire, Jessica Chen, and discovered some troubling patterns." Jessica's last name wasn't Chen, it was Morrison. She'd apparently changed it when she left Innovate Solutions. "I'm not sure what this has to do with," Jessica began. "It has everything to do with this," Janet said firmly. "I've been in contact with Kevin Park's attorney from the Innovate Solutions case. They're reopening their investigation based on new evidence of a systematic pattern of intellectual property theft." Janet turned her laptop screen toward the room. On it was a Slack conversation between Jessica and Marcus Webb, dated 3 weeks ago. The preview text visible showed, "Target identified. Sarah Chen's retention project is exactly what we need for the next phase." "How did you get private Slack messages?" Jessica demanded, her composure finally cracking. "Company monitoring software," Janet replied coolly. "Triggered by keywords related to intellectual property theft. Both of your accounts have been under observation since yesterday." The silence in the room was deafening. I watched Jessica's face cycle through emotions: shock, anger, calculation, and finally something that looked almost like respect. "You can't prove anything," she said quietly. Janet smiled. "Actually, we can. Sarah's blockchain-verified documentation proves timeline ownership of every element you've claimed. And your own messages to Marcus detail the entire scheme." Amanda stood up slowly. "Security will escort both Jessica and Marcus out of the building immediately. Sarah, we'll need to discuss your promotion to senior marketing strategist as soon as possible." As security arrived to handle Jessica's departure, she looked at me one final time. "You're smarter than I thought," she said. "Thanks," I replied. "I learned from the best." But as Jessica was being escorted out, she turned back with that same calculating smile that had fooled me for weeks. "You might want to check your personal email, Sarah," she called over her shoulder. "Some very interesting photos just went out to the entire executive team." My blood turned to ice. "Photos?" David was already pulling out his phone, his expression shifting from satisfaction to confusion to something much darker. "Sarah, I think you need to see this." The email had been sent from an anonymous account to Amanda, David, and the entire C-suite. The subject line read, "Concerning behavior from Sarah Chen, confidential." My hands shook as David turned his phone toward me. The first photo showed me at my desk at 11:47 p.m. last Thursday, taken through the office windows from the parking garage. The second was me accessing the server room at 6:23 a.m. on Sunday morning, a violation of our security protocols since I didn't have weekend access authorization. The third was a screenshot of my personal laptop screen showing the Proofkeep blockchain platform, with a caption that read, "Employee appears to be stealing proprietary data for external backup." "I can explain," I started. "The server room access is particularly concerning," Amanda said, her voice cold again. "That's a terminable offense, Sarah. What were you doing in there?" My mind scrambled for the truth. I'd gone in Sunday morning to retrieve my personal files from the shared drive before Jessica could delete them. But without authorization, it looked exactly like what Jessica was implying: corporate espionage. Janet was typing furiously on her laptop. "The timestamp on these photos." "Jessica, how did you gain access to our security camera feeds?" But Jessica was already at the elevator, flanked by 2 security guards. She pressed the call button and looked back at us one final time. "Maybe ask Marcus about that." "Oh wait, you can't. He's already submitted his resignation." The elevator doors closed, and we were left standing in David's office with a wreckage of what had seemed like my vindication just minutes before. "Sarah," Amanda said slowly, "I need you to understand how this looks. Unauthorized server access, external data backups, secretly recording colleagues. Even if your project work is legitimate, these actions raise serious questions about your judgment and trustworthiness." Janet cleared her throat. There might be a reasonable explanation for the server room access. Sarah, what exactly did you retrieve? My personal development files for the machine learning model. I'd saved them on the shared drive by mistake and realized Jessica might delete them. I pulled up my Proofkeep dashboard on my phone. Look, the backup timestamps show I was only accessing files I'd created myself. But David was shaking his head. The perception problem alone is damaging. Our clients trust us with sensitive data. How can I recommend someone for senior management who breaks security protocols? Because she was protecting intellectual property from theft, Janet said firmly. And the blockchain verification proves. The blockchain verification proves she was sophisticated enough to plan this entire scenario, Amanda interrupted. Think about it. The recordings, the external backups, the after-hours server access. This could all be an elaborate setup to frame Jessica and position herself for promotion. The room started spinning. In trying to protect myself from Jessica's scheme, I created evidence that made me look like the manipulator. Every move I'd made in self-defense now appeared calculated and deceptive. I need time to review everything, Amanda said. Sarah, you're suspended pending a full investigation. Janet, I want a complete forensic analysis of both employees' activities over the past 6 months. As I gathered my things from David's office, my phone buzzed with one final text from an unknown number. Well played, but I always have a backup plan. Enjoy your suspension. J. I stared at the message, realizing Jessica had orchestrated this entire endgame. She'd never intended to keep the promotion, she'd planned to take us both down, knowing she could disappear while I'd be left holding the bag for security violations and policy breaches. Walking past my desk for what might be the last time, I wondered if I'd been playing chess while Jessica was playing four-dimensional warfare. The suspension hit like a sledgehammer. I sat in my car in the tech-full parking garage for 20 minutes, staring at the building where my career had just imploded. Jessica's final text message glowed on my phone screen. Well played, but I always have a backup plan. By the time I got home, my company laptop access had been revoked and my keycard deactivated. But Jessica had underestimated one thing: I still had contacts. Ryan texted me at 4:17 p.m. Dude, the whole office is going crazy. Jessica never showed up for her meeting with Amanda this afternoon. Security says she never made it to the parking garage after leaving David's office. My stomach clenched. What do you mean never made it? Cameras show her getting in the elevator, but she's not on any footage after that. It's like she vanished. And get this, Marcus Webb's desk was completely cleared out before anyone even knew he'd resigned. Like he'd been planning it for days. I called Janet immediately. They disappeared, didn't they? Both of them, Janet confirmed. And it gets worse. Payroll just discovered that Marcus had been creating fake contractor accounts for the past 4 months. Jessica was getting paid through 3 different shell companies, essentially triple-dipping while building her case against you. How much money are we talking about? Preliminary estimate? Around $47,000 in fraudulent payments. This isn't just intellectual property theft anymore, Sarah. It's organized fraud. I felt a weird mixture of vindication and terror. So I'm cleared? Not exactly. Janet's pause made my heart sink. Amanda is convinced you might have been working with them. The sophisticated nature of your blockchain backups, the fact that you seem to anticipate their moves, she thinks the whole thing was an elaborate 3-way scheme that went wrong. That's insane. Is it? From her perspective, you created the perfect documentation trail, recorded conversations that conveniently supported your version of events, and had technical solutions ready for problems that hadn't happened yet. It looks like planning. I slumped against my kitchen counter. So Jessica wins. Even in disappearing, she destroys my career. Maybe not. Janet's tone shifted. I've been digging deeper into the Innovate Solutions case. Kevin Park's attorney sent me something interesting, security footage from their office building showing Jessica accessing their servers after hours, just like you did here. Same pattern, same MO. That proves she's done this before. It proves more than that. Park's attorney thinks Jessica and Marcus have been running this con at multiple companies. They get hired, identify high-value intellectual property, systematically steal it while framing the original creator, then disappear before the investigation concludes. My phone buzzed with another unknown number. Check your personal email. Final gift. J. With trembling fingers, I opened my Gmail. The message contained a single attachment, a video file labeled Insurance Policy. The video showed me in my home office at 2:43 a.m. last Sunday, working on my laptop. But the timestamp was wrong. It showed last Tuesday, 3 days after Jessica's presentation. And on my screen, clearly visible, was a document titled Frame Jessica, Plan B. She deepfaked me, I whispered into the phone. Janet, she created a fake video of me working on a document that doesn't exist. Send it to me immediately. Don't download it, don't share it, just forward the email. But as I was forwarding the message, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw 2 people in dark suits holding badges. FBI. Sarah Chen? We need to talk to you about a federal wire fraud investigation. As I opened the door, my phone rang. Janet's name on the caller ID. Whatever you do, she said, don't say anything about the recordings until I get there. Jessica just made this a federal case. The taller FBI agent stepped forward. Ma'am, we have evidence suggesting you've been involved in a multi-state intellectual property theft ring. We need you to come with us. I stared at the badge, then at Jessica's fake video still playing on my laptop screen behind me. Somehow, in trying to destroy her, I'd become the perfect patsy for crimes I didn't even know were happening. Can I call my lawyer? I asked. You're going to need one, the agent replied. The FBI field office in downtown Chicago felt like something out of a legal thriller, all fluorescent lights and beige walls that seemed designed to crush hope. Agent Martinez, the taller of the 2 who'd shown up at my door, sat across from me in interview room C while Agent Kim operated a recording device that looked far more sophisticated than my amateur iPhone setup. Let's start with your relationship to Marcus Webb, Agent Martinez said, sliding a thick folder across the metal table. How long have you known him? I don't know him, I replied, grateful that Janet had arrived 20 minutes earlier and was sitting beside me. He's HR at my company, but we've never had a personal conversation. Agent Kim looked up from her notes. That's interesting, because we have bank records showing wire transfers from your personal account to a company called Meridian Analytics LLC. A company that Marcus Webb registered in Delaware 6 months ago. My blood turned to ice. That's impossible. I've never heard of Meridian Analytics. Agent Martinez opened the folder and pulled out what looked like bank statements. 3 payments of $1,847 each, sent on August 15th, September 12th, and October 3rd. All with memo lines reading, Consulting Services, Retention Project. I stared at the documents, my hands shaking. The dates corresponded perfectly with major milestones in my project development. Someone had been very careful to create a payment trail that made it look like I was buying stolen research. My client needs to see her actual bank statements, Janet said firmly. These could be fabricated. They're not, Agent Kim replied. We pulled them directly from First National's servers this morning. Along with email communications between Ms. Chen and an account registered to Jessica Morrison discussing project deliverables and maintaining plausible deniability. The room started spinning. I never sent those emails. Jessica must have hacked my account. Agent Martinez leaned forward. Ms. Chen, we've been investigating this fraud ring for 8 months. Jessica Morrison and Marcus Webb have stolen intellectual property worth over $2.3 million from 7 different companies across 4 states. Each time, they've had an inside accomplice who helped identify valuable projects and provided cover stories. Sarah is a victim here, not an accomplice, Janet interjected. She's the one who brought the theft to our attention in the first place. After creating extensive documentation that conveniently proved her innocence, Agent Kim said dryly. Documentation that includes blockchain verification, audio recordings, and timeline analysis sophisticated enough to fool most corporate investigations. I felt like I was drowning in quicksand. You think I recorded Jessica to create evidence for a defense I'd need later? We think you helped her steal your own project to split the profits, then something went wrong and you decided to frame her. Agent Martinez pulled out another document. We also think you're about to tell us where Jessica Morrison is hiding, because the alternative is federal conspiracy charges that carry a minimum sentence of 7 years. Janet's hand found my arm under the table. Don't answer that. But I was staring at the fabricated bank statements, seeing Jessica's masterpiece in full clarity. She hadn't just stolen my work, she'd created an entire financial paper trail making me look like her business partner. The fake emails probably detailed our collaboration and discussed how to handle the tech flow situation if we got caught. My phone, sitting in the plastic bag with my other personal items, buzzed with what I knew would be another message from Jessica's anonymous numbers. Agent Kim glanced at it and smiled grimly. That'll be your partner wondering if you've given her up yet, she said. Want to see what she's offering to pay you for keeping quiet? As Agent Kim reached for my phone, I realized Jessica's final game was more elaborate than I'd imagined. She wasn't just framing me for her crimes, she was positioning herself as the victim of my betrayal. The question was, did I have any moves left? The message on my phone wasn't from Jessica. It was from Kevin Park. Agent Kim read it aloud. Sarah, if you're seeing this, they got to you too. I've been tracking Jessica and Marcus for 2 years. There's something the FBI doesn't know. Call me when you're alone. K. Agent Martinez grabbed the phone. Kevin Park is a person of interest in this investigation. Any contact with him constitutes obstruction of justice. He's the original victim from Innovate Solutions, Janet said quickly. Sarah has every right to speak with other victims. Not when those victims are actively interfering with a federal investigation. Agent Kim stood up, her chair scraping against the linoleum. Mr. Park has been spreading conspiracy theories about Jessica Morrison being part of some elaborate criminal network. We've investigated those claims thoroughly. Something in her tone made my stomach clench. And? Jessica Morrison cooperated fully with our investigation. She provided evidence that Marcus Webb was the primary orchestrator of the fraud ring, and that employees like you and Kevin Park were recruited as accomplices through financial incentives and promises of career advancement. The room went silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Jessica hadn't disappeared, she'd turned herself in and flipped the entire narrative. According to the FBI, I wasn't her victim. I was her co-conspirator being thrown under the bus by Marcus Webb, the supposed ringleader. Where is she now? I asked. Witness protection, Agent Martinez replied. In exchange for her testimony against Webb and identification of his other accomplices across multiple companies. Janet leaned forward. What testimony? What could she possibly? Agent Kim pulled out a tablet and swiped to a video file. Ms. Morrison provided us with extensive recordings of her conversations with Marcus Webb, detailing how he recruited employees to steal intellectual property in exchange for fabricated consulting payments. She pressed play. Marcus Webb's voice filled the room, clear as day. Sarah's the perfect mark. Brilliant enough to create something valuable, desperate enough for promotion to go along with the scheme. Jessica, I need you to gain her trust and document everything. My heart stopped. It was Marcus's voice, unmistakably, discussing me like I was a commodity to be harvested. But something was wrong with the audio. The pacing was too perfect, the sentences too clean. It sounded like. This is synthesized, I said suddenly. Jessica created this using AI voice cloning. Agent Martinez raised an eyebrow. That's a serious accusation. Play it again. Listen to how he says intellectual property, there's no breath before property. Real speech has micropauses and breathing patterns. This is assembled from voice samples. Janet was nodding. Sarah's right. I've seen this technology in other cases. If Jessica had access to Marcus's recorded meetings or phone calls, she could generate convincing fake conversations. Agent Kim looked skeptical. Even if that were true, we have corroborating financial evidence. The wire transfers from your account are real, Ms. Chen. Because she had access to my banking information through Marcus's HR system, I replied, pieces clicking together. She could have initiated transfers using my routing number and account details, then deleted the transaction records from my online banking. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Kevin Park, they think I'm crazy too. But I have proof Jessica's done this to 11 people across 6 companies. She's not in witness protection. She's in the Cayman Islands. Check flight records for Jennifer Morrison, Jessica's sister. Same passport photo. Agent Martinez was reading over my shoulder. Mr. Park needs to stop interfering with this investigation. What if he's right? I asked. What if Jessica created fake evidence against all of us while Marcus was just her first victim, not her partner? The agents exchanged glances. Agent Kim closed her tablet. Ms. Chen, you have two choices. Cooperate with our investigation by providing information about Marcus Webb's whereabouts and the full scope of your involvement, or face federal conspiracy charges when we present our evidence to the grand jury next week. Janet stood up. We need time to review all the evidence you presented. Full financial records, complete email chains, technical analysis of the audio recordings. If my client is innocent, the data will prove it. As we gathered our things, Agent Martinez handed me his card. You have 72 hours to decide, Ms. Chen. After that, the offer comes off the table. Walking out of the FBI building into the cold Chicago afternoon, I felt like I was in free fall. Jessica had managed to convince federal agents that I was her criminal partner while positioning herself as the hero who brought down a fraud ring. What happens now? I asked Janet as we reached the parking garage. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at Kevin Park's messages on my phone. Now we find out if Jessica Morrison is really in witness protection, or if she's sipping cocktails on a beach in Grand Cayman. And if she's in the Caymans? Then we prove the FBI is being played just as hard as you were. My phone rang. Unknown number, but this time I recognized the area code, 345. Cayman Islands. Hello, Sarah. Jessica's voice was crystal clear across the international connection. I hear you've met my friends at the FBI. I stared at my phone as Jessica's voice came through with perfect clarity from what was supposedly a secure witness protection location. Surprised to hear from me, she continued, and I could practically hear her smiling. I bet the FBI told you I was safely tucked away somewhere, helping them build their case against big bad Marcus Webb. Janet grabbed my arm and mouthed, keep her talking, while pulling out her own phone to start recording. The FBI said you were cooperating, I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. That you provided evidence about Marcus recruiting accomplices. Oh, I provided evidence all right. Beautiful, convincing evidence that took me 3 weeks to synthesize using some very expensive AI software. Jessica's laugh was light, almost musical. Did you like Marcus's confession? I sampled his voice from 47 different recorded meetings. The man loved to hear himself talk. My hands were shaking. So Marcus isn't the ringleader? Marcus is fish food somewhere in Lake Michigan, sweetie. Has been since last Tuesday night. Turns out he figured out what I was doing and threatened to expose everything unless I cut him in for 50%. Her tone turned cold. I don't do partnerships. The parking garage suddenly felt ice cold. You killed him? I defended myself against a blackmailer who was threatening my livelihood. But the FBI will never find enough of him to prove that. Jessica's voice brightened again. What they will find is a beautifully constructed case showing how Marcus Webb recruited vulnerable employees like you and Kevin Park to steal intellectual property, then abandoned you all when the heat got too intense. Janet was typing frantically on her phone, probably trying to contact Agent Martinez. The financial records showing payments to my account, I started. All real, all traceable, all initiated using Marcus's administrative access to TechFlow's banking system. I transferred money from corporate accounts to a shell company, then from the shell company to your personal account. On paper, it looks like Marcus was paying you consulting fees. In reality, you never saw a penny of it because I immediately reversed the transfers through a secondary shell company registered in your name. My stomach dropped. Registered in my name? Sarah Chen Consulting LLC, incorporated in Nevada 6 months ago using your social security number and a forged signature. You're the legal owner of the company that received all the stolen money, which then disappeared into cryptocurrency accounts that the FBI will never be able to trace. I leaned against Janet's car, feeling like I might collapse. The FBI thinks I'm hiding millions of dollars. Not millions. Yet. But Kevin Park can tell you what comes next. They'll freeze your assets, charge you with money laundering, and offer you a plea deal to testify against other co-conspirators in exchange for a reduced sentence. Other co-conspirators? The 7 employees from 6 different companies who all mysteriously received consulting payments from shell companies right before their intellectual property was stolen. Amazing coincidence, don't you think? Jessica's voice was practically purring now. By the time I'm done, you'll all be facing federal charges while I'm living comfortably on the proceeds from your actual hard work. Janet held up her phone screen showing a text from Agent Martinez. Park found dead in hotel room. Apparent suicide. Investigation ongoing. My blood turned to ice. Kevin's dead? Kevin got impatient, Jessica said, her tone casual as discussing the weather. Started making noise about fake evidence and international conspiracy theories. The FBI doesn't like their star witness being contradicted by unstable conspiracy theorists. You killed him too. I inspired him to make a permanent decision about his legal troubles. Sometimes people just can't handle the pressure of federal investigation. She paused. But you're stronger than Kevin, aren't you, Sarah? Smart enough to take the plea deal when they offer it? Janet was pulling out her car keys, gesturing urgently toward the vehicle. What plea deal? I asked. Testify that Marcus recruited you, admit to receiving the consulting payments, provide details about how the scheme worked across multiple companies. 7 years minimum security instead of 25 maximum. All you have to do is confirm their narrative about poor Jessica Morrison, the brilliant analyst who uncovered a massive fraud ring and bravely came forward to help federal investigators. The line went quiet except for the sound of ocean waves in the background. You have 48 hours to decide, Sarah. After that, I move on to phase 3, and you really won't like phase 3. The call ended, leaving me staring at a dead phone in a Chicago parking garage while somewhere in the Cayman Islands, Jessica Morrison was probably ordering another pina colada with my stolen future. Janet drove us straight to a 24-hour internet cafe in Chinatown, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles were white. We need to access systems the FBI can't monitor, she said, pulling into a parking spot behind a dim sum restaurant. If Jessica's right about Kevin Park's death being staged, we have maybe 12 hours before they come for you with handcuffs. The cafe smelled like instant ramen and energy drinks. Janet paid cash for 2 computers in the back corner while I tried to process everything Jessica had revealed. Kevin Park was dead. Marcus Webb was dead. And I was apparently the legal owner of a shell company that had laundered millions in stolen intellectual property. Pull up the Nevada Business Registration Database, Janet instructed, settling at the terminal next to mine. Search for Sarah Chen Consulting LLC. My hands trembled as I typed. The results made my stomach plummet. The company existed, incorporated on March 15th with my social security number, listing my home address, and showing a digital signature that looked exactly like mine. The filing fee had been paid with a credit card ending in 4782, the same last 4 digits as my Visa. She cloned my card too, I whispered. How is this even possible? Janet was pulling up bank records on her screen. Corporate identity theft on this scale requires serious technical resources. Look at this, Sarah Chen Consulting has received $2.7 million in payments from 17 different shell companies across 8 states. All of it flowing through cryptocurrency exchanges within 48 hours of deposit. I stared at the transactions, watching my supposed criminal empire unfold in real time. Every payment corresponded with intellectual property thefts at different companies. Marketing algorithms from a Phoenix startup. Customer segmentation models from a Seattle firm. Predictive analytics frameworks from companies I'd never heard of. She's been using my identity for almost a year, I said, scrolling through months of fabricated business activity. Every time she stole something, she made it look like I was the buyer. Janet's phone buzzed. Agent Martinez calling. She declined it immediately. They're going to want answers we don't have yet. We need more evidence before we talk to them again. Evidence of what? Jessica just confessed to murder over an international phone call. Isn't that enough? Not without proof she was actually in the Cayman Islands when she called. For all we know, she was using a VPN from a hotel room in Milwaukee. Janet pulled up a flight tracking website. Let's check Kevin's theory about Jennifer Morrison. The search results showed a Jennifer Morrison, age 31, had flown from O'Hare to Grand Cayman on Tuesday morning, the same day Marcus Webb supposedly disappeared. The passport photo was definitely Jessica, just with blonde hair instead of brunette and different colored contacts. She's been planning this exit strategy for months, Janet muttered, screenshotting everything. Fake identity documents, international banking, staged evidence packages for the FBI. This isn't opportunistic fraud, Sarah. This is organized crime. My phone rang again. This time it was Amanda Rodriguez from TechFlow. Sarah, I need you to come in immediately. Amanda's voice was tight with stress. The FBI just served us with warrants to seize all computers and financial records related to your employment. They're treating our office like a crime scene. Through the cafe window, I could see police cars racing down Cermak Road with sirens blaring. The net was closing around me, and Jessica was probably watching it all unfold from a beach chair 3,000 miles away. Amanda, I can explain everything. The explanation I need is why our corporate accounts are missing $847,000 that was apparently transferred to your consulting company last month. Sarah, please tell me you didn't steal nearly $1 million from us. I looked at Janet, who was already shaking her head. Don't admit to anything over the phone, she whispered urgently. I'll be there in an hour, I told Amanda, ending the call. Janet was pulling up more financial records, her expression growing darker by the minute. Sarah, it's worse than we thought. She didn't just frame you for intellectual property theft. She's been systematically embezzling from TechFlow and making it look like you authorized the transfers. How much? As of this morning? $2.3 million missing from 6 different corporate accounts. All traced back to your administrative access codes. My vision blurred. Jessica hadn't just stolen my project, she'd turned me into the mastermind of a multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme. The cafe's fluorescent lights flickered as Janet pulled up TechFlow's internal financial system using her legal access credentials. What we found made my mouth go dry. Look at the timestamp on this transfer, she said, pointing to a $340,000 withdrawal from our client retention budget. October 15th, 2:47 a.m. That's the exact time you were giving your presentation to the Singapore office via video conference. I stared at the screen. I was on camera with 12 people when that transfer happened. There's video proof I couldn't have authorized it. But your access codes were used, Janet said grimly. And look at the approval signature, it's your digital certificate, the one requiring your fingerprint and PIN. My hands went cold. The company laptop Jessica borrowed last week. She said she needed to access the shared drive for research coordination. I logged her in using my credentials because her account was having issues. She recorded everything. Your fingerprint from the touchpad, your PIN entries, probably even took photos of your access cards. Janet was typing rapidly. Sarah, this goes beyond identity theft. She's created a digital clone of your entire corporate identity. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Enjoying the internet cafe? Wave hi to the camera above the Dragon Warrior poster. J. I looked up slowly. There it was, a small security camera pointed directly at our terminals. Jessica wasn't just monitoring law enforcement, she was watching me in real time. Janet followed my gaze and swore under her breath. We need to move. Now. But as we gathered our things, Janet's phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and her face went ashen. It's my law firm senior partner. She answered with shaking hands. Richard, what's? Her expression crumbled as she listened. Are you serious? Since when? A long pause. No, I understand. Yes, I'll clean out my office tomorrow. She hung up and stared at the phone. I've been terminated. Effective immediately. Apparently TechFlow's insurance company discovered I've been representing you in a federal fraud case without disclosing the conflict of interest. What conflict of interest? The one Jessica created 15 minutes ago by filing a civil lawsuit naming both you and my law firm as co-conspirators in a scheme to defraud TechFlow. Janet's voice was hollow. She's claiming I helped you fabricate evidence and coached you on creating fake blockchain documentation. The walls felt like they were closing in. So you can't represent me anymore? I can't practice law anywhere until this gets resolved. She just destroyed my career along with yours. Janet stood up, her professional composure finally cracking. 22 years of building my reputation, gone. Because I tried to help you. Another text from Jessica. Collateral damage is unfortunate but necessary. Check your credit score, Sarah. Might want to sit down first. J. With trembling fingers, I logged into my credit monitoring app. My score had dropped 247 points overnight. 17 new accounts had been opened in my name, all showing massive balances and missed payments. Credit cards, personal loans, a mortgage on a property in Nevada I'd never seen. She's systematically destroying every aspect of my life, I whispered. Janet was staring at her own phone, probably seeing similar financial carnage. It's not random destruction, Sarah. She's creating evidence of a lifestyle funded by stolen money. The FBI will see expensive purchases, cash advances, luxury spending, all proving you were living off the embezzled funds. My phone rang. Agent Martinez. Ms. Chen, we need you to turn yourself in immediately. We have evidence you've been actively fleeing the jurisdiction and destroying evidence. If you don't surrender voluntarily within the next 2 hours, we'll issue a federal warrant for your arrest. Fleeing the jurisdiction? I haven't left Chicago. Our records show Jennifer Morrison, the identity you've been using to travel internationally, flew from O'Hare to Mexico City this morning. Stop running, Sarah. It's over. The line went dead, leaving me staring at Janet in the flickering light of the internet cafe. Jessica had somehow convinced the FBI that I was Jennifer Morrison, that my mysterious sister identity was actually me fleeing the country. She's not just framing me, I said slowly. She's becoming me. Taking over my entire existence while making me disappear into federal prison. Janet nodded grimly. The question is, do we have any moves left, or has she already won? Before I could answer, the cafe's front door chimed, and 2 figures in dark suits walked in, scanning the room methodically. Time was up. I grabbed Janet's arm and pulled her toward the back exit, but the cafe owner was already shaking his head and pointing toward the front. Fire exit only, he said in accented English. Alarm will sound. The 2 agents were showing their badges to the teenager at the front counter, who was nodding and pointing directly at our corner. We had maybe 30 seconds before they reached us. The bathroom, Janet whispered urgently. There might be a window. We slipped into the single-occupancy restroom just as I heard Agent Martinez's voice, FBI. We're looking for Sarah Chen. The bathroom window was barely large enough for a person, painted shut, and faced an alley that looked like it hadn't seen sunlight in decades. But Janet was already working at the window frame with a hair clip while I tried to think of any move that wouldn't make things worse. My phone buzzed. Jessica again, the agents are carrying arrest warrants for both you and Janet. Something about obstruction of justice and conspiracy to flee prosecution. You really should have taken my deal, sweetie. Janet, she knew they were coming, I whispered. This was another setup. Of course it was. Janet had managed to crack the paint seal and was working the window open inch by inch. She's been feeding information to the FBI while making it look like we're the ones being deceptive. A knock on the bathroom door. Ms. Chen? Agent Martinez. We know you're in there. Come out slowly with your hands visible. Janet got the window open just wide enough to squeeze through. You first, she insisted. But I was staring at my phone, at Jessica's messages, at the financial records still open on the browser. Something was bothering me about the timestamps on those shell company transfers. They were too perfect, too evenly spaced. Almost like they were automated. Janet, what if she's not done yet? What do you mean? Look at the pattern of the embezzlement dates. Every transfer happens exactly 72 hours after the previous one. The last one was yesterday morning, which means... My blood went cold as I realized what Jessica's phase 3 really was. She wasn't just framing me for past crimes, she was setting up one final, massive theft that would happen automatically while I was in federal custody, unable to defend myself. The TechFlow server room, I said suddenly. When I went in Sunday morning, I saw a new device connected to the main financial terminal. Small black box with blinking lights. I thought it was just new security equipment. A hardware backdoor, Janet breathed. She's been planning to drain the entire corporate account. Agent Martinez knocked again, more forcefully this time. Ms. Chen, you have 10 seconds to open this door before we breach it. I pulled up TechFlow's financial dashboard on my phone, using the emergency access codes every senior analyst memorized. The main corporate account, the one containing our entire quarterly operating budget, showed a pending transfer scheduled for 11:47 p.m. tonight. $12.8 million, authorized with my digital signature, transferring to Sarah Chen Consulting LLC. She's going to steal everything, I whispered. The whole company's operating budget. And it'll look like I set up a time-delayed transfer before fleeing the country. Ms. Chen. Janet was halfway through the window. Come on, we can figure this out later. But I was thinking about everyone at TechFlow, Ryan at his desk, Amanda trying to build something meaningful, even the annoying guy from accounting who always heated fish in the microwave. Jessica was about to destroy all of their jobs to frame me for the biggest corporate theft in the company's history. I can't run, I said, stepping toward the bathroom door. If I disappear now, that transfer goes through and 200 people lose their jobs because of my supposed crimes. Sarah, no. I opened the door to find Agent Martinez and Agent Kim standing in the narrow hallway, hands resting on their weapons. Agent Martinez, I need you to listen very carefully. In approximately 4 hours, Jessica Morrison is going to steal $12.8 million from TechFlow using malware she planted in their financial systems. Agent Kim stepped forward with handcuffs. Sarah Chen, you're under arrest for wire fraud, conspiracy, and computer crimes. Check the pending transfers. I said desperately as she cuffed my hands behind my back. Sarah Chen Consulting LLC, scheduled for tonight. She's not done framing me yet. Agent Martinez was reading from a card, you have the right to remain silent. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was watching Janet climb back through the bathroom window, choosing escape while I chose to stay and fight a battle I probably couldn't win. As they led me toward the front of the cafe, my phone, now in Agent Kim's evidence bag, lit up with one final message from Jessica. Phase 3 commences in 4 hours and 23 minutes. Thanks for making it so easy, Sarah. The FBI interrogation room felt like a tomb, but I had exactly 3 hours and 47 minutes to save TechFlow before Jessica's final transfer executed. Agent Martinez sat across from me, skeptical but finally listening as I walked him through the pending transaction logs on my confiscated phone. You're asking me to believe, he said slowly, that Jessica Morrison planted hardware in TechFlow's server room to execute a time-delayed theft while you're in federal custody, creating the perfect alibi for herself. Check the device I'm describing. Small black box, Ethernet connections, attached to the financial terminal. It wasn't there when I accessed the server room 3 weeks ago. I leaned forward in my chair, handcuffs clanking against the metal table. Agent Martinez, if that transfer executes at 11:47 p.m. tonight, Jessica walks away with nearly $13 million while I take the blame for destroying an entire company. Agent Kim returned with a laptop, her expression unreadable. I contacted TechFlow Security. They found the device exactly where you described. IT says it's a sophisticated packet injection system, capable of executing pre-programmed financial transactions. My heart hammered with the first real hope I'd felt in days. Can they disable it? Already done. But here's the interesting part, the device was programmed with your authentication credentials, but the actual programming code contains metadata linking back to a computer registered to Jennifer Morrison. Agent Kim turned the laptop screen toward me. Your fake identity that's supposedly you fleeing to Mexico. Agent Martinez was typing rapidly on his phone. I'm ordering surveillance footage from Grand Cayman International Airport. If Jessica Morrison is really there using your sister's identity. She is. And I can prove it. I gestured toward my phone in the evidence bag. The call I received came from area code 345, Cayman Islands. But more importantly, she referenced specific details about Kevin Park's death before you guys made that information public. Agent Kim's eyes sharpened. What details? She called it an apparent suicide in a hotel room. Those exact words, 40 minutes before your press release used the same language. She also knew you'd found financial records linking Kevin to shell companies. I met her stare directly. She knew because she created those records, just like she created mine. The room fell silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Agent Martinez was reading something on his phone, his expression shifting from skepticism to concern. Cayman surveillance confirms Jennifer Morrison arrived Tuesday morning and has been staying at the Ritz-Carlton. Hotel records show she made 17 international calls to U.S. law enforcement agencies over the past week. He looked up at me. She's been feeding us information about you while establishing an alibi 3,000 miles away. Agent Kim was pulling up financial records on her laptop. If we can prove the shell companies were created using stolen identity information, and that the cryptocurrency transfers were automated through the hardware device, then Sarah's a victim, not a perpetrator, Agent Martinez finished. And Jessica Morrison just attempted to commit the largest corporate theft in Chicago history. My phone rang in the evidence bag. Agent Kim glanced at the caller ID and raised an eyebrow. It's her. Put it on speaker, I said. Let me talk to her. Jessica's voice filled the interrogation room, crystal clear and competent. Hello again, Sarah. I'm watching CNN right now, something about a major FBI arrest in a corporate fraud case. You really should have taken my deal. The deal's off, Jessica, I said calmly. They found your hardware device. A long pause. Then that familiar laugh, but with an edge of panic now. Clever girl. But you're forgetting something important. I have backups for my backups. That $12.8 million transfer was just the opening move. Agent Martinez was frantically signaling to Agent Kim, who was already on her radio calling for additional support. What backups? I asked. Every company I've targeted over the past 2 years. Every victim I've framed. Every piece of intellectual property I've stolen. Jessica's voice turned ice cold. It's all about to be released publicly with your name as the mastermind, Sarah. The FBI might believe you're innocent of tonight's theft, but what about the other 47 thefts across 12 states? What about the $23 million in total damages you're about to be blamed for? My mouth went dry. She wasn't just framing me for TechFlow, she was positioning me as the head of a massive criminal enterprise spanning years and multiple states. Except, I said slowly, remembering something crucial, you made one mistake, Jessica. You're calling from Jennifer Morrison's phone, from the Cayman Islands, while the FBI traces this call in real time. And you just confessed to 47 counts of intellectual property theft. The line went completely silent. Agent Kim smiled grimly as she showed me her laptop screen, call trace complete. Signal originating from Ritz-Carlton Grand Cayman, room 1247, registered to Jennifer Morrison. Jessica Morrison, Agent Martinez said into the phone, you're under arrest.